Hello and welcome. My name is Kyle, and this is How You Level Up, a podcast that decodes language to help you become your best self. You know what's interesting about envy? It's the only human impulse from the 7 deadly sins that doesn't feel good, even in small doses. The 7 deadly sins are pride, greed, wrath, lust, gluttony, sloth, and envy. Pride is the excess of self-regard. Healthy self-respect becomes arrogance if you have an inability to see your flaws. Greed is the excess of material wealth. Natural wanting becomes insatiable, and you become a hoarder in many different ways. Wrath is the excess of anger. Justified anger or frustrations become uncontrolled, destructive rage. Lust is the excess of sexual or physical desire, where your natural attraction becomes all-consuming and obsessive. Gluttony is the excess of consumption. Necessary eating and drinking becomes overindulgence and waste. Sloth is the excess of rest, where recuperation becomes avoidance in all effort and responsibility. Envy is the excess of comparison. Natural evaluation of your position becomes corrosive resentment toward others. It's probably the emotion we're least willing to admit we feel, envy. And there's a reason for that. Robert Greene said something on the Diary of a CEO podcast that I was listening to not too long ago. He said envy is ugly in the sense that it's an admission you feel inferior, that someone is better than you. And who wants to admit that? Nobody that I know. You can admit you're angry. That's almost acceptable. You can admit you're sad, anxious, or jealous of a thing. But envious? That's different. Envy requires you to look at someone else's success, their talent, their life, and admit that you feel lesser as a result. It's almost like a confession of inadequacy. So we dress it up, we call it something else, and we rationalize it away. We are wired to do this, though. And Greene points to the example with chimps, where if you give one chimp a grape and withhold grapes from other chimps, you see envy erupt immediately. This is not a learned behavior. It is primal. Our brains are comparison machines. That's how we make sense of the world around us, by comparing one thing to another. We see something, we compare it to what we know, and we orient ourselves accordingly. This tree is taller than that one. This animal looks less threatening than that one. This path is safer than the other path. This person has more resources than I do. For most of human history, that served us very well. Comparison helped us survive. It helped us understand our position in the tribe, assess threats, and identify opportunities. The problem is that this same mechanism that helps us understand reality also makes us vulnerable to envy because we can't turn it off. We're constantly evaluating, constantly measuring ourselves against others. And because of how quickly our brains make these comparisons, envy hits us before we often realize it's happening. In ancient societies, when someone received a gift or reward, they'd often give it away, not out of generosity. They did it out of fear. Fear of envy-driven attacks, of mob mentality, of becoming a target. They understood something that we have forgotten, that unchecked envy is dangerous. It doesn't just hurt the person feeling it, it creates social violence. It tears communities apart. So what did they do? These people back in the day. They managed it through ritual, through redistribution, through cultural norms that kept individual success from becoming too visible, too provocative. Why? because we don't like it when we think others don't deserve something. So if everyone else cannot have it, they can't have it either. Now fast forward to today, and social media is an atom bomb for envy. We are not just comparing ourselves to our immediate tribe anymore. We're comparing ourselves to everyone, everywhere, all at once. The chimp that got the grape withheld, we're seeing that there are 1,000 grapes that we don't have every single day. The successful business launch, the perfect relationship, the exotic vacation, the award, the recognition, the body that person has, the life that we don't have. Of course, we're not seeing reality when we look at social media. We can acknowledge that. We're seeing curated highlights, yet our brains don't know that. Our subconscious is not aware of that. It is still operating from the ancient wiring of, if they have it and I don't, I'm losing. So we scroll, we compare, we feel that familiar tightness in our chest. And we don't call it envy, we call it inspiration or motivation. I know I do. Or we don't call it anything at all. And we just feel vaguely inadequate and move on to the next post. There's a practice that almost sounds too simple, and it works. When you feel envy, consciously tell yourself that you're happy for the other person's success. Not as a lie, as a deliberate reframing. Green calls this ennobling. It is an ennobling feeling. You're choosing to elevate yourself rather than diminish someone else. This is not about toxic positivity or pretending you don't feel what you feel. It's about recognizing that you have a choice in how you can respond to a stimulus. Envy is the automatic reaction that we feel, all of us. Happiness for someone else is the conscious feeling. And when you do this, when you genuinely practice it, something is going to shift. You're going to stop seeing someone else's success as evidence of your failure. You'll start seeing it as evidence for what's possible. The landscape changes a little bit from scarcity to abundance. Now, this trick is coming from Robert Greene's book, The Laws of Human Nature. That your attitude creates your circumstances. Not entirely, of course. There are real structural barriers, real differences in opportunity, real luck involved. And the lens through which you view your world will shape how you move through it. It shapes what you notice, what you pursue, what you believe is available to you. If you're walking around convinced that someone else's win is your loss, you're going to make decisions from that place. You're going to avoid risks. You're going to resent success. You're going to shrink. If you can look at someone else's achievement and genuinely feel happy for them, that opens up your world. It says, good things are happening elsewhere. Good things are possible. Maybe for me too. There's this quote that comparison is the enemy of happiness. And Naval Ravikant has another way of putting it. That desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. This means that every time you see something or someone else that has something that you want, you're essentially saying, I will not be okay until I have that. You are locking yourself into a state of lacking. What if instead of focusing on lack, you asked what the envy is actually telling you? Understanding envy and what it tells us about ourselves, Jung said that the self with a capital S is the same as God. This sounds abstract. And here's what it means. There's a version of you that's fully realized, fully actualized. And when you feel envy, you're catching a glimpse of something that version of you would have or be. The person you envy isn't better than you. They're just further along in the path that matters to you. Naval says it a little bit more directly, that Envy is a sign that you ought to be doing more with your life. Not that you're failing, not that you're inadequate, that there's something in you that wants to grow, to build, to become, to be different. And instead of honoring that, you don't take action and you watch someone else feeling, seething, sitting in that envy. So maybe this is the real question we should be asking ourselves. Not, why does that person have what I don't have? It is, what is this envy showing me about what I actually want? Because envy, ugly as it is also information. It's pointing at something. The writer who makes you envious, maybe you want to write. The entrepreneur who makes you envious, maybe you want to build something. Envy is a signal. The question is whether you're going to do something about that signal, or just let it fester. So, over the course of the next week, see whether or not you feel envy about anything. Listen, watch for that signal. And ask yourself, when it shows up, is there a choice that I can make to get what I seemingly want? I hope you have a good morning, a good day, or a good night. Thank you for listening to How You Level Up. If you're enjoying the show, subscribe and give a 5-star rating. There are new episodes each month asking questions about timeless communication lessons. Language is a medium for sharing, and the knowledge unpacked here can be applied to anyone, anywhere, facing any challenge. If there's a question or topic you'd like me to dive into next, send a note to any of my connected social media accounts. This is all about how you level up.